Dear brothers, for those of you who read the quote, which is the title of today's episode, and have absolutely no idea who Daro of Lycos is, that probably needs to change. For those of you who do know who that is, you are part of probably the coolest people on earth, which I have just recently joined. Daro is the protagonist in the book series called Red Rising. It's a future dystopian society that I'm going to say somewhat equates to a intergalactic Game of Thrones, if you will, but in my opinion, even better. I don't want to give away too much more than that, but all you need to know is that the action, second to none. The storyline, the character development is second to none. The philosophical underpinnings are certainly second to none. Honestly, it's become one of my top favorite series of all time. There's 6 books currently. There's one we're all waiting for. And I think I went through them all in the matter of like a month and change. And there were some nights that I was up till like 2:30 in the morning reading the book, and my wife was not overly thrilled about that. But a very special shout out to my boy Kenny and my buddy Mar, who turned me on to this absolute brilliant book. I'm very grateful to both of you. The Jacksonville Book Club has added a new member here. So as I was finishing the last book, I highlighted this quote that Daro makes as he is thinking about his best friend Sevro, who is an absolute legend and savage, just so all of you know. He's the man in the book. And for some context, Sevro is struggling immensely in this time of the book with being away from his family and some of the atrocities that occurred to them at this time. He is bitter and agitated. He doesn't know who he is or what defines him, and he can't shake his guilt and hatred, or at the same time, his devotion and love for his ride or die buddy, which is Daro. And Daro at this time has kind of given him an ultimatum that he needs to get it together or not. But that is his choice, not Daro's. So Daro says the following as he's considering his proposal to Sevro, and it really resonated with me immensely, and it's going to kind of lead our conversation today. And Daro says this: "In the cold prison of our minds, we are alone with our self-hatred, our doubts, and guilt. No one more than Sevro. A friend may reach through the bars and hold our hand, but they cannot open the door for us. Only the prisoner has the key. All I can do is remind him we're waiting for him when he gets out." This quote hits me directly in the chest every time that I read it. This book is full of those kinds of axioms, and I really want to tell you about the importance in my mind of this one. Each one of us, guys, is responsible for the cages that we put ourselves in. We can allow the circumstances of the world to dictate where we find refuge. However, we often find refuge in a cage that we create. Our own self-loathing, our own faults, our own lack of discipline, our own inability to wrestle with God, our lack of courage, our lack of perseverance is the cold prison that he mentions that's in our minds. We sit there and fight with all of our doubts and guilt, and we are begging for someone to pull us out of it. But we're forgetting the most important part. If we are in this prison that we have made, that means that we also have access to the key. I believe, as I thought about this, that this key is kind of twofold in nature. The first part is as Daro describes. A friend can only show you the prison you are in. They can be there with you, hold your hands, give you wisdom, be a good listener, push you to make changes, but they cannot be the one who unlocks the cell. No changes in life comes from someone else being the doer of the deeds only you can perform. Friends are a bolster, they are not a crutch. You cannot save all of your friends from their difficulties, just as much as they cannot save you from all of your own. You must be a guide to them, but you are not their savior. And this brings me to the second point about the key to this self-made prison cell. God is truly the only one who can help you escape and should be the first one you look to. The friend can only sit outside the bars, bringing you wisdom. God is the only one who can come inside the cell with you. He can sit there. He will listen. And at the end of the day, he is a father, a man who wants nothing but the best for you. But you must be willing to ask for the help, to accept that you are not perfect, that you are not godlike, that you cannot solve every problem on your own. That if you try to conquer your demons independently, you are inevitably going to fail because you lack the piety for the one person who is capable of helping you. God and your friends and your fellas, your boys, still cannot make you pull the key. That responsibility lies with you. You must make the choice to exit your self-created prison. That prison might be anxiety. That prison might be depression. It might be a drug addiction or a porn addiction. It might be alcoholism. It might be letting your children down. It might be letting your wife down. It might be feeling inadequate. It could also be years of abuse. Whatever the struggle is, whatever prison you have allowed yourself to walk into, the only way out is by accepting that, number one, you are not omnipotent. You cannot solve everything with your strength alone. The only person, number two, the only person who can open the door is you. In order to take that step and put the key in the hole and twist, you must cast your cares before Christ. Accept your friend's wisdom and understand that by doing so, they will be there on the other side of the cell with arms wide open. As Marcus Aurelius says, you have to be active in your own rescue. You cannot be saved from your own tyranny until you become active in its expulsion. This requires humility, perseverance, and faith. Humility that you are not all-knowing and unbreakable. Perseverance in that you are going to face a difficult road outside of that cage as you start conquering your demons one by one. And faith in that you are not alone in this endeavor and good things come to those who act. This is but one of the many meanings I pull from Darrow's words, and I pray that all of you find some solace in this today. As men, we must be there for our friends, guide them, listen to them, push them. But we must also be active in the removal of our own adversities. Lastly, we must trust that God has a very beautiful plan for our lives, and ultimately our worries have to be cast before Him. If we can do that, gentlemen, you are going to conquer any prison cell that comes along. As always, God bless. I love you all. Be strong. Let's get active in our own rescue today, boys.